Meeting to order of the Timberlane Regional School Board, April 23rd at 7:01 p.m. Kat, could you take the roll call, please? And everybody remember that I need to say my statement first. As chair of the Timberlane Regional School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I am confirming that we are utilizing Zoom for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing this meeting, including how to access the meeting using Zoom or telephonically. Instructions have also been provided on the website of the Timberlane Regional School Board at timberlane.net/Zoom TRSB. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-382-654, extension 3955. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. We'll start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When each member states their presence, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Kat?
Ryan Boyle.
Present. I'm in the room alone. There are other family members in the house.
Lee Doobie.
I am here. I am alone in my office. There are other members of my household present throughout the house.
Kim Farah.
I am here. I am in my office. I'm not alone. There are other family members in the house.
Barbara Kishka.
I am present. I'm alone in the home.
Sheila Lowe's.
I am here and alone in the home.
Sarah McNamara. I believe is not here. Sean O'Neill.
I am here, present in my office, and there are other members of my household in the building.
Kristen Savage.
I am present, and there are other members of my house present in the house as well.
Jennifer Silva.
I am here with other members of my household elsewhere in the house. I'm alone in my office.
Dr. Metzler.
I am present, and I have other members of my family in the house.
Kyle Duffy.
I am present. I'm alone in the room, but there are other members of my family in the house.
Roll call is complete. The presence of other district administrators, as well as anyone from the Timberlane Teachers Association, will be reflected in the meeting minutes.
Thank you. Sarah McNamara did notify me in advance of the meeting that she would not be able to attend tonight. She may log on later, I'm not sure. So that being said, could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Moving on to the approval of minutes.
I motion that we approve the minutes of April 16th.
Mrs. Kitska motions for approval of the minutes of April 16th. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Brian seconds. Is there any discussion on the minutes?
Yes, I just wanted to make an amendment under policy where it states the committee was divided about whether to strike the noted verbiage. I think that should be the school board. The committee, the policy committee itself moved it forward to the board with that language stricken out.
Okay, so noted. So committee should be changed to board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Any other changes to the minutes? If not, Kat, could you take a roll call vote, please, on approval of the minutes?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes.
Mrs. Silva,
Yes.
And me too.
and there's one thing that you're not on here. I apologize. Mrs. Kishka.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, Mr. Duffy, do you have a report for us this evening?
Yeah, I got a little few things to talk about here. Good evening, everybody. I hope you're all still well as we go into or finish off week 6 of the quarantine. I hope everybody's doing well in their jobs and their families are well as well. So as we keep going through the adjustment phase of this, our students and teachers are still doing great work with technology that we have, and they're going to continue doing that and learning over this period, even if we're not together in school. So tonight, I just wanted to take note a little on student culture and the student culture rebound that I've noticed in the past few days. I just wanted to highlight some of the things that I come together and our Owls community works through this together. So just ago, the Milkmen, they released their first virtual show ever, Children of the Corn. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm excited to sit down and give that a watch. Just yesterday, the student paper was released in an online edition. Student Council has introduced Linked. It's an online spirit week in a way where through the coming weeks, we're going to showcase student talent and abilities through challenges and fun competitions. And a lot of students have been given a lot of hope from the administration and staff, listening to them about graduation, end of year events, award ceremonies, and we're very excited seeing that there are set dates and there is some sort of tentative plan right now, and we really appreciate all of them working on that. And we just really hope that things go well, but if they don't, that's as it is. But we appreciate the work that's been put into it. So I just wanted to know that student culture is going great. I think we're really coming together as a community, and I think it's fantastic. So hopefully we're getting something good out of all of this.
Great, thank you very much. So moving on to current business, the bulk of the meeting is just an update on remote instruction. So I will turn it over to Dr. Metzler, who will then let people report as needed.
Great, thank you, Dr. Farah. As Kyle mentioned, which again, thank you, Kyle. Our instructional staff has been working hard and improving, each week, and I think you will see that will continue as we look for better ways to deliver, this remote learning to obviously all of our families and certainly obviously our students. But this evening we have an update, and it's divided up and I think it addresses some of your questions, hopefully all of your questions. So I'm going to ask Sandy and her team if they would they take this and kind of take you through these 5 sections. We did quite a bit of work on this with our superintendent's leadership team the other day, and I think you're most, like I said, I think hopefully all of your questions will be answered. And if you have any other questions, then certainly the team will be prepared. So Sandy, you're all set.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's update on remote learning, we have sections that we're going to speak to around a tool that we have used called Thought Exchange to collect some student and parental input regarding senior activities. So I'm going to speak a little bit more to that. We're going to update you on the SAT school day and state exams, and then give you some technology access updates in response to some questions that were raised last week. And we'll speak to participation attendance and then some student feedback as well. So I wanted to start with Thought Exchange. So we have mentioned this tool a couple times since we have entered remote learning. This is an online platform that has actually been opened up free of charge during the pandemic, to organizations that include school districts, but it's also used by businesses across the country and globally to collect feedback and to allow participants to engage with one another through a rating system. So the way this works is we can pose an open-ended question and create a link that we send out to the stakeholders that we are looking to engage. Once they have that link, they click on it. They do not need to log into anything. It is completely anonymous. The system collects no personal identifiable information at all. Once they get there, we can build in a couple survey questions. We just did 2 thought exchanges, actually. We sent them out on Saturday regarding senior activities and graduation. So we did build in a couple survey questions for that one. I'm actually going to show you briefly some of that feedback. But we were able to ask a question such as, if we were to, given the restrictions on social distancing, if we had to hold a remote graduation, would you be interested in attending? So that was a survey question. It was a simple yes, no answer. But then participants are directed to an open-ended question, and it allows them to share their own feedback, their ideas, to ask questions that they may have regarding what we might be planning to do. Once they enter those thoughts, and they can enter multiple thoughts, they're not restricted on the number, they then enter what's called the starring rating system. So the way it works is, once a thought has been shared, it is put into the system and they are sorted, not in any sort of order, they're just randomly put in there once they've been posted. And participants will see them, and there's a starring system on a scale of 1 to 5. So depending on the degree to which they agree with a thought, how relevant they think it is, if they share the same question that may have been posed, they can rate it. 5 would be a higher level of agreement. 1 would be if it's something that maybe is not a priority for them, or they do not share that same opinion. So again, this is an anonymous process, and it's an ongoing process. So we sent this out originally around, I want to say 3:30 on Saturday, to both of our groups, parents and students in the class of 2020. We then sent a reminder on Monday to those 2 groups again, giving them some updates on participation. We shared the top thought at that time to really entice them, if they haven't looked at the tool, to get in there. It's also an opportunity for people who may have shared a thought to get back into the exchange, to see what people have added, to rate those thoughts. So it's a very dynamic process that can go on over a few days. So these 2 thought exchanges we closed at 6 p.m. on Tuesday. We had a really high level of participation. And I was hoping to do a screen share briefly, just to show you a visual. This tool gives us the ability to see something. It's really a crowdsourcing visual. So I was hoping, Dean, I believe I have the ability to screen share. So I'm going to try to do that right now. And are you all able to see? Right now it should just look like a slightly blank screen. Are you all
Yes.
Okay,
We
great.
can see that.
All right, excellent. So what I'm going to show, I'm just going to hit play. I'm actually going to speed up the speed because it can go quite slowly. But what you're going to see once I hit play is, you'll see icons that represent individuals who have shared thoughts. Then you'll see blue message bubbles. Those do represent the thoughts that they entered. And then you'll start to see some orange lines that will connect the people, the thoughts, the way they've been rated. And they'll start to interact in live time throughout the exchange. So I'm going to speed it up a little bit, because otherwise we'll be sitting here for several minutes. But I'm just going to hit play. And hopefully, I'm going to scroll down a little bit. But you can see as it's moving that some of the people on the periphery may not have yet shared a thought, perhaps may not have rated much of anything. If there are people who have an orange line to a thought or to multiple thoughts, but they're on the outside, those may be some of the outliers who did not rate certain thoughts in the same way that other participants may have done so. The closer into the center of this visual that you see, the more in line with the higher rated thoughts these people and thoughts are. So it's just a simple visual. It doesn't give you feedback on what thoughts were shared and the ideas, but it's a really nice representation to show you the degree to which people are able to interact with one another and to share their ideas in this sort of live online platform. So, I think that is the end of it. So this was the student exchange. So you're able to kind of see the number of people who participated. And again, some of these people on the outside may have gotten in there to look at things, but may not have actually rated or shared their own thoughts, but might have explored what other people put in there. So that's just one visual that I wanted to share. In your executive summary, we did share with you some general overview information. So in terms of participation for our students, and again, this just went out to our class of 2020. We had 204 students in that class exchange in this thought exchange, which is really, for a survey of this type, I think a high level of participation. Those students shared a total of 189 thoughts that some of them again ranked. There were 4,926 stars, so that's the rating system that speaks to. For parents in the senior class, we had a total of 146 parents get into the parent exchange, and those parents shared 174 thoughts. So again, a really great high level of participation. We were really excited to see the activity going on in there and to see the kind of online conversation. In looking at that survey question that I mentioned at the beginning, this gave us some really interesting feedback, but from the students, again, a yes/no question. The question was, if we are able to hold an in-person graduation, would you participate in a remote graduation? So we were really looking to see, that is not our goal. We want to have a live in-person graduation with all of our students to be able to celebrate in person with their families and all of our students. However, as you know, we are beholden to restrictions that are put in place by our governor, by the CDC. So if those restrictions are not lifted, we wanted to see what the potential level of interest would be in a remote ceremony. So amongst the students, we had only 37% of the students who participated who said yes. On the flip side, 74% of their parents said that they would participate. I would imagine that if the parents are participating, their students would as well. But we got that was a slightly different perspective. That being said, if you look at the top rated thoughts, there was a lot of commonality. So again, 5 stars is the highest rating that you can have in the system. So in both the student and the parent exchange, the highest rated thoughts spoke to the need to have graduation in general, but if possible, to postpone that ceremony to a point in the summer in hopes that restrictions would be lifted. So again, this really gave us some great feedback. I'm only sharing 2 thoughts from each exchange, but our admin team has read through all of these. We were monitoring them throughout the days that this was open. And this feedback really helped to inform the conversations, the work of our high school admin team in putting together some proposed dates and a tentative schedule at this point for either some virtual award ceremonies or a graduation date later this summer in hopes of having it in live time. So I know our high school admin team is planning to come to the board meeting and present to you in much more detail around a plan for all of those activities at the next board meeting, which I believe is May 7th after the April vacation, the pause that we're all taking from remote learning next week. So that is Thought Exchange. We wanted to share that with you. And again, we've used this 4 different times. These 2, we did one with parents and students. We have used this twice with our whole staff. The first time it was to get their general feedback on remote learning. This was just, I want to say, a few days into remote learning back in March. That gave us some really great feedback to be able to support our teachers and move forward with some changes that have since been implemented. And then we also did one just over a week ago on video conferencing. That again, I think we shared some general feedback from that a week ago, but we wanted to just show you what that platform looked like. So that is Thought Exchange, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have about the platform. But I do feel that it's been very successful for us, especially during this time when we don't have that opportunity to have in-person conversations with people face-to-face. It's a way to really have our community interact with one another in an anonymous way. So there's no pressure one way or the other. With you share your thoughts openly and are able to see how other people are feeling. So it's several parents reach out regarding this after we put out the initial invite. and they were really excited by this. So, you know, hopefully this was a positive experience for all involved, but our team again was really happy with this. So from there, I wanted to move on to the SAT school day. You know, last week we had some questions around the SAT school day and where we were at with state assessments. So I wanted to let you know first and foremost, right now all decisions are pending based on state level decisions that are outside of our purview. So we are beholden to decisions made by our Commission of Education, the Department of Ed, and work that they're engaged in communicating with the College Board, but also the US Department of Education regarding federal and state accountability. So at this point, on March 30th, the governor announced the suspension of all standardized tests. So that includes the New Hampshire State Assessment, the New Hampshire SAS, that we administer from Math and ELA in grades 3 through 8. That includes the State Science Assessment, and that includes the SAT School Day, which is the assessment for federal accountability for 11th graders in the state of New Hampshire. Right now, the governor and the commissioner on their websites and their communications out to districts have noted that, you know, they tried hard to, especially with the SAT, negotiate some possible dates. This is an opportunity for our 11th graders and their families to take the SAT at least once free of charge to them, because this is the state assessment again, so our families on that administration do not pay for the test themselves. That being said, they have not been able to secure a date or a time frame where they can be sure that it can happen within the restrictions that we are currently living under. That being said, the College Board on their website has posted that they are right now canceling all other SAT administrations through the spring. They are hopeful that they can begin SAT administrations in August. And if they are able to do so, they have committed to offering SAT administrations on the weekends once a month from late summer through the fall. And their website indicates that they would give priority to students in the class of 2021, so to our juniors who have not yet taken the SAT. That is not a cost-free administration of the assessment. This is not something our district pays for. This is something, you know, that comes through, again, the state assessment. So we right now don't have any additional information other than what I am sharing with you, but we will certainly keep you posted as information becomes available. So I wanted to, though, turn this over to Mr. Pedersen. We wanted to share with you some things that we have done, steps that we have taken at the high school through our classes and through future plans in remote learning to provide support to our students, SAT prep, to get them ready for it should families be looking to take this assessment, have their juniors take this assessment in the fall, if and when that should open up. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr.
One second. Can I just ask, so as it stands right now, parents should be expecting to keep an eye out and register their children for the SAT and pay for that, because this will not be offered through the school day, correct?
As of right now, Jen, yes. And that is, again, we are awaiting any updates from the state, but based on the information that we have available from the Commissioner of Education, that is correct. That being said, you know, the College Board has also said they are, you know, possibly working with states around the country to see if that might be rescheduled. I can't speak to that. Those decisions are outside of our district, so we are awaiting information.
Just want to put it out there for parents, so for planning purposes, they need to know, because we haven't done this like this in a while in our district, and I don't think it's something that parents are used to doing, that we need to be looking for ourselves for those dates, for those test locations, register and pay for that on our own.
Yes, and at this point, there is nothing open right now. They have not announced their fall dates at this point. They've put on their website that possibly in May, they may be announcing some dates for administration in the fall, but again, they are waiting to see how the situation plays out as well. So right now, that's the best information we can provide you with the information we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Sandy, if I may, when we firm this up, and we know for sure, can we have Principal Woodworth make sure he sends something out to parents clarifying this and with dates and places and all those sorts of information that they could use, so that they have that information ready.
Yep.
They don't have to search for it.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. Our counseling department as well maintains updated information on links that are provided on our school website as well. And I think that is actually included. There's a link to that portion of our website in your executive summary at the bottom of the section on SAT prep. So if you are interested, you can check that out as well. There are many resources posted there as well for families. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pedersen just so he can speak to SAT prep. And not knowing right now when these students may be able to take the SAT, we are trying to do everything we can to support those students in being well prepared once that window does open up for them. So.
Sandy, before you turn it over, just a quick question on Thought Exchange. I think it was something we had looked at before. And typically there's a cost associated with it, but it sounds like it's a really interesting, useful tool for getting feedback.
Yes, this, I think it was Dr. Wilson last year, possibly, who may have brought this to you. I know Dr. Metzler and Dr. Wilson were looking at it with us at SLT. It was proposed to the board last year for board use, but you're right, there was a cost associated. At this point during the pandemic, it's been opened up. We also looked at using some grant funding that we could potentially use as well for this, but the Thought Exchange, it's posted right on their website that due to this virus, they're opening it up because it can be such a useful tool for people to communicate and engage their stakeholders remotely. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right.
Great.
Thank you, Sandy. So I just want to expand upon what Sandy was saying about SAT prep. I want to start by saying that the curriculum is definitely aligned in numerous ways to the problem-solving, reading and writing skills assessed on the SAT exams. So really the preparation for the SAT starts when students are in and engaged in the curriculum and the courses that we offer at the high school. So that we're already doing prep regardless of what other things we do as we call prep when students are just engaging in the curriculum. Also for the second consecutive year, we designed a comprehensive preparation plan for the essay portion of the SATs because it is now mandatory for all students to be taking that portion of the SAT as well. So we developed a 4-week plan in the English, Science, and Social Studies departments. And like I said, this was the second year of it. So we had already started that plan in place. And by the time that we went out on this remote learning adventure, if you will, so it had already started in the English and the Social Studies departments. And it starts with, in the English departments, the English teachers engage the students in an analysis of sample writings and how the essay is scored. And we use documents from or released from the College Board. So the English teachers are sort of giving an overview first for the students. And then in the Social Studies class, students participate in a practice writing prompt during the class period. And we find a writing prompt from the College Board that's used on past SATs or released as an SAT example that's also pertinent to the content and the curriculum that the students are using in social studies. So the students then reviewed a Khan Academy SAT writing tips in that class. Then they had 15 minutes to write a practice essay, which is sort of that same time period that they would be using for the SAT exam. And then that is, like I said, the timed essay model was the conditions that they would encounter in the test. The social studies teachers then grade that and give feedback to the students using the SAT essay rubric. And then, the next two parts of it are they do the same sort of practice essay in science, and then they go back to their English classes with those graded essays. And the English teachers sort of wrap up and look at those essays and do some more work with the students with those essays. But unfortunately, because of now the outage, we haven't been able to continue that with science and English this year. We are looking for ways of, how can we incorporate some of that this year, do it in the fall, things like that. So we're looking at to continue that if we can. We just have to figure out the logistics of it for those sections. And then as far as math goes, many 11th grade math teachers are using SAT examples, problems, things like that. English teachers are also doing some things above and beyond what I just talked about. We're using SAT practice items. Even now during remote learning, they're using a number of tools that are specifically designed to help students with their writing and test-taking skills. Some English teachers are using a tool called No Red Ink that is really helping students become better writers, and a lot of the prompts that are found in that tool are SAT prompts. Besides for what we're doing, we also, as Sandy mentioned earlier, that on the district's website, on the counseling page of the district's website, there's a link that has a whole bunch of additional tools such as Khan Academy, College Board itself, other tutorials, other tools, other practice. So there's just a whole bunch of tools that students can find and that we're going to encourage. The other thing that we're looking at, besides just offering that out, is what are some other SAT preps that we can be offering outside of the classroom. So we're currently exploring different options to engage our math and writing interventionists into some SAT support. We have in the past done SAT prep as part of our evening division. So we're looking at how do we, how might we come back to that? What might we do in the summer, whether it be live, whether it be virtual, whether it be a combination of both. The admin team at the high school, as well as the counseling department, have been looking for ways to have some of these opportunities for students, even if we do have social distancing throughout the summer months, still offer some SAT prep.
Thank you. Kim had to step out for 1 second. Are there any questions on that or? No? Okay.
Great. I think Ken Henderson is going to jump in and talk to you about technology access with an update and some additional information on video conferencing.
Yep. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. So just a couple quick updates from the past week. We continue to get Chromebooks to students who need them and providing information to on internet service options to those that reach out. I know we handed out 4 Chromebooks this past week, and we'll continue to do so as the weeks go on, anticipating anywhere from 3 to 5 per week with leakages. And as anticipated, we had some parents come out and say, I have, now that we're in this for the long haul, we have, 1 Chromebook that we're sharing between 2 or 3 kids. Maybe I want to get some more. So we had some of that this past week. Now, an action item come out of last week's board meeting was you requested a list of technology items that were not needed for next year that would be needed in the event that we either start the year remote learning or we have to go back into it at some point next year. So in your executive summary, you'll see a list of devices and applications that we feel would be needed to provide an optimal remote learning environment. If you can refer to that list there, you'll see a list of devices. You'll see 3 different devices, and these are really designed to go to grade/age appropriate levels. So we're going to look at getting tablets. We recommend for preschool and pre-K, touchscreen Chromebooks for kindergarten, and then Chromebooks to augment Chromebooks that we currently have to get grades 1 through 5 in a 1-to-1 scenario. So the progression that you see here is going from touchscreen to a keyboard, really. 3- and 4-year-olds are going to not use the keyboard very well. They don't even know their alphabet at that point or their numbers. So the tablets are very helpful with them being able to learn those skills. A touchscreen Chromebook, as the name implies, is the touch screen. The students can touch the screen and manipulate it, but it also has a keyboard. So it's a nice transition for kindergartners to touchscreen to keyboard. So you can look at the number of devices we're looking at there. And that was me putting together some things on items we already or Chromebooks we already have. in the schools. Of course, at the secondary level, we're all set one-to-one already there. Below the devices, you'll see 3 different applications: Seesaw, Screencastify, and Zoom. These are applications either we want to get or we want to continue to use. So taking it from the top down, Seesaw is a learning management system. Think Google Classroom, but age appropriate for younger students. So we're recommending that for preschool through grade 1. That cost would cover those grades for the year. Screencastify, we've talked about this a little bit, I think, in previous meetings, is a screencasting tool, as the name implies, pre-recorded lessons that teachers can make using video or on-screen presentations that they speak over. So that would be for the entire district for next year, that $8,000 we got for every teacher in the district. Now, the item and the one below it, Zoom, are both being offered for free right now. We're using them for free as part of the, their company's COVID-19 accommodations, like a lot of companies are doing. You know about Zoom. We're using it now. We're getting it for free, the pro level for education. This is what it would cost for us on that list. The Zoom for Business would give us 300 accounts, would cover professional staff. It's not cheap. You're looking at $6,000 a month. It would be month to month, so that's good. I wouldn't pay for the year up front, even though it would be a little bit less per month. Hopefully we're not out all of next year. So Screencastify and Zoom, there's some unknowns there, right? Are they going to continue to offer them for free next year? We don't know. They probably don't know at this point. We don't even know what the situation is going to be. So I just wanted to get you the numbers on what we'd be looking at if the worst case happened, which is we're in a remote learning situation again, and these companies decide that, hey, we're not going to offer this free anymore. You're going to have to start paying for them. So just wanted to get those numbers to you. Next item down, document cameras. We've already bought some this year. They're very handy for certain subjects, science and math. I think the usage will go up as remote learning continues. And of course, we have some break, like any technology device. So just threw 50 in there as something we would look to get for next year if we're in this situation again. The last line item is totally just an FYI for the board. I've seen another district or two doing this for families that don't have internet. It's providing Wi-Fi hotspots. What I scoped out was Verizon one. So what a Wi-Fi hotspot is just a box that you plug in at your house, and it takes the Verizon signal and it transforms it into a Wi-Fi signal, so that you could get on with a Chromebook or laptop or whatever the device may be. So Verizon sells these, of course. They're $100 a piece, and the monthly recurring cost associated with them, which is $40 a month. That's money in there. Again, just pull that out of thin air. I thought, come September, or if we have to go back into this next year, there may be more of a need for families looking to get internet access. So any questions on that part of it before I give a video conferencing update?
Yes, I think Barbara has a question and I have a question. Go ahead, Barbara.
So I'm very supportive of getting the Chromebooks for the kids. But can you describe the difference between Zoom for Business, Zoom for Education, and what we get through Google Meetings or the Google software we already have?
Yes, I was going to get to Google Meet in the video conferencing update, but I can explain them here. So Google Meet, Google just announced integration of Meet into Classroom this past week, just a few days ago, actually. Google Meet is free, of course, just like Google Classroom, which is, it's a pretty good deal. There's limitations with Google Meet. There's pros and cons, like with Zoom. I can give you, just one quick example. So Zoom, you can end the meeting for all. As you just end the meeting and it's over. Google Meet doesn't work that way. Teachers need to wait for all the students to leave the meeting before they should end it. And that's in our guidelines, and we went over that with them in PD extensively, but that's something they need to do. So, this is just, if you're familiar with Google, this is kind of their MO, but they roll something out there and then they kind of fix it as they go. So that's some nuances around Meet that Zoom's better at. So in a nutshell, Zoom has more bells and whistles, more features than Google Meet. But I will say that Meet being integrated into Google Classroom is incredibly easy to use. And our teachers were very excited that that was in Google, and I was supportive to give them access to use that. So,
Okay, but just one question. There's Zoom for business, and then there's also pricing for education. Why are we going for the business one?
well, that's just a number I put together. I mean, I put this together in, just over the past couple of days. We can look at I would certainly get education pricing on that. I just wanted to put out there, but I'm going to need 300 accounts, and we're going to need some sort of enterprise level or higher level costs than free. So that number, again, those numbers are approximate, but I put in there. They are subject devices anyway to being put out to bid, of course. So that was just the placeholder. No, it's a good point, Barbara. We'll look into all the different Zoom options and go with the one that is the most cost economical for sure.
Or if Google Meets catches up, we'll just stick with that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's something we can actually, we can talk about and, discuss. I like having the options available, and while Zoom is free, I certainly want to offer both because some educators like using Zoom because of those extra features. But yeah, if we have to start paying for it, then we're gonna have to make a decision for sure.
Okay, thanks. Sheila has a question.
Make sure I'm off. Karen, I was actually one of the ones that asked for the technology update, and the main reason I asked for it was I wanted to know, with the current pandemic all around the country, are we going to have a problem getting Chromebooks for our 6th graders and our 9th graders as they're coming in? Is there a wait list on these, or?
Yeah, it's a great question.
That was my question.
Yeah, it's a great question, Sheila. And I always want to get the Chromebooks and the tech items before July 1. But as everybody knows, the books don't open till July 1 for the next fiscal year. So I know that's just the way it is. So we can certainly try, and we work with vendors in the past where we're like, listen, I'm going to get these. I can't get you a PO till July 1, but hold them for me.
I'm just curious if you have an idea of the wait time, because I would imagine right now.
I don't think anybody does, Sheila. And the thing is, like, as you allude to, I mean, there's supply issues from China, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So I anticipate some lead time issues for sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's competitive from the schools trying to get them all during a regular summer anyway. Never mind when there's a supply
where
issue.
this is going on, right? That's what I was concerned with. I wasn't, but we still, even if these Chromebooks get returned that we've lent out to the elementary schools, at 925, that was enough at the time for the elementary schools to have what they needed before this pandemic happened. We weren't one-to-one before this happened, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, we were not.
So even with the ones we've lent out, we still have plenty more if we needed to lend out, correct? Because we're like, what, 250, 260, 280?
Yeah, we've handed out like 270 at this point, sure. Yep.
Okay, so we have 270 and there's roughly 925 sitting in the building. So I guess, what are the preschoolers using right now?
Mostly home devices, actually.
Okay, but what I'm asking is, in the schools, what are they using now?
Oh, in the schools, it's a mix. It's a good question. Yeah, they have some older tablets. They have some touchscreen Chromebooks.
Okay.
But I mean, we'd like to move them to strictly tablets and kind of standardize across the district for sure.
I understand that, but they're pretty tough on those too.
I would get the rugged ones too.
Right. Well, yeah, but I'm thinking a preschooler and a top. They're kind of tough. But that was the original question, was if you could look into and see if there is a lag time, wait time.
I will certainly reach out and see if there's any. Yeah, I'll certainly reach out and see if there's any inkling on what people are thinking. But yeah, I think at this point everybody's anticipating some supply issues for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Jen?
Ken, so right now our high school students use their Chromebooks for 4 years, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, this will be this junior class is the first class to get them.
Yep.
The seniors this year, we actually took the ones, because every other class was 1-to-1, we took books that were in the school in the carts, and we took the best ones that were remaining, gave them to the seniors to use for this year.
So if we had to, so the 6th graders right now, I mean, the 8th graders right now got their Chromebooks in 6th grade, which means they would have had them for 3 years. So if they needed to keep that same Chromebook for a 4th year, it really would be no different than what the high school kids are doing for 4 years, correct?
No, that's true, Jen. And, you know, I've been talking to my tech team about this, and some administrators is, you know, the plan was, it's always been to collect them, to let seniors take them with them, because after 4 years, they're pretty, you know, well used. We were going to collect them from the 8th graders and redisperse, because they're going to get new anyway in 9th grade. But I think that we'll let them, I mean, I'm leaning toward letting them take them with them for the summer and just keep them. And then if things are, you know, just normal, we have we have a normal school opening next year. We have Chromebook nights. We have the 8th graders bring their old Chromebooks in, and they get their new Chromebook when they turn their old one.
But I'm saying if there's some problem with the supply chain and we can't get enough for incoming 9th and incoming 6th, then
Oh, totally agree. Yep, they keep them until we get them in. Yes. And the other thing is, like, what if we start next year in remote learning? The worst case scenario that I could think of is we collect them in June, and then we go back into remote September, and I have to get them back out again. So I think we let them keep them until we actually know that, you know, we're back in school for good, and then we can have those Chromebook nights. We get the new ones in, and then we disperse them. Yeah.
Okay, Ken, a quick question. Are there families right now that need Wi-Fi hotspots?
Not that I know of. Kim, like my report last week was, there was 10 that we knew of district-wide, and I knew there was 2 or 3 that were confirmed being good. I know we've reached back out to those families that we haven't heard from, and basically just, you know, let us know if you need any, you know, if there's any issues. In the meantime, those families, from what I've been told, have been doing the work online and getting the assignments turned in. So we're assuming they're all set. We can reach back out to them again and see how they're doing.
If you could, that would be great. We don't want students not able to do the work because of something which is a relatively low cost, and, you know.
I agree. Yeah, and there's a lot of
disparity
accommodations
here
out there right now, and it's a little bit of a, I don't want to disparage Comcast, but it's a little bit of a, you know, they say free internet. Well, it's free for 2 months, and then you start paying. So I just, you got to sign up for a year. Granted, it's low cost internet, but still, it's not completely free.
Right.
I mean, it's a free offer, which is still not bad. Don't get me wrong, but I just wanted to put that out there. You know,
Okay, we just need to make sure that families have what they need in this remote environment. And I'm not saying that you're not doing that, but I think it would be good to keep reaching out. And then one other quick question on these document cameras. What are you planning to use those for? I just asked that question because I was going to use a document camera, and I realized that it does not work the way you might think it would work.
Well, we have a lot in the district already that we use. When we opened up the schools for the educators to go back into their classrooms and grab materials for remote learning, a lot of them took their doc cameras with them. So some use them to display, you know, pages that they're manipulating. You know, think of a math lesson that they're recording. Some use them for straight out video conferencing. You know, they'll aim the doc camera at themselves. Some of our older laptops don't have built-in cameras, so they're using them in that regard.
I'm just thinking, Ken, you might want to check those doc cameras, because if you're trying to use them to do a real-time math instruction, I was actually trying to use one, and maybe mine isn't as good, but it kept refocusing anytime I put my hand on there to write. So it was not very useful for something where you're trying to do a real-time instruction.
Okay, I'll reach out and see how they're working out. Absolutely.
Sean, thank you.
Yeah, Ken, I just wanted to ask in regards to those hot Wi-Fi hotspots, those are from Verizon, correct? And they're going to be Wi-Fi to cellular, translations, so that I would say districts that have pretty poor cellular service, which I can probably name 3 of the 4 are probably in that case, they're going to have potentially issues of reception.
Mm.
Agree. Yeah, they're only as good as the cell service they have at their.
And we definitely have spots that don't have cell service.
Yep, it's always the weakest link.
Mm.
Yeah.
Sure, it's a good point. Yep, they would have to, in that instance, they if they didn't have decent Verizon coverage, then they're not going to work very well. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I haven't checked into it in a little while, but Verizon's the best I've heard of in the area anyway in terms of coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want me to, I had the video conferencing we already talked about a little bit. So I talked about Google Meet being integrated into Google Classroom. We've already developed guidelines, had some PD around that. We also developed student usage, some guidelines around that, and got those on the resource page, made teachers aware so they can make students aware of guidelines around using Google Meet. We also developed a new survey, which went out, I believe, just yesterday, and it's going to close tomorrow. And we're hoping, if you recall, a couple weeks ago, we put one out there, and it wasn't very, it was lightly participated in. So we're doing another one this time through SurveyMonkey. We're hoping the participation is increased, and we're asking teachers again about video conferencing usage. We're asking them some new questions, like what tools are they using to provide new material to students? And we're also inquiring into interest in using video conferencing for the direct instruction of new content and skills. So again, that survey monkey will close on Friday, and we will have the results to you in an executive summary for your May 7th meeting.
Great. Ken, thank you. I'm just
I think
gonna.
Barbara's raising her hand.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
sorry,
I know
Barbara.
Mark and Lucy are planning to jump in to just speak and update you on participation and attendance since last week. So I think Lucy is up first for elementary schools.
I think I didn't point. I just wanted to point. I think Barbara's asking a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Barbara.
Sorry about that.
I'm not seeing everybody right now, so I have to keep scrolling through. Go ahead, Barbara.
Sorry. So I just had a question on that survey about video that Ken was just talking about. Is that anonymous or is that identified?
Oh, yeah, I good question. I totally meant to put in that's totally confidential. Anonymous survey, yep.
All right, good
Thank you.
evening. I'm pleased to share with you that the attendance and participation has remained high at the elementary level. During the first 2 weeks, participation data showed 50 students district-wide at elementary had not participated. Last week, I reported that 28 students had not participated in week 4 at the elementary level, and this number has come down for week 5 to 17. This is due largely to teachers, school counselors, and administrators who've worked hard to make contact with each family and support both students and families in order to get all engaged.
Great. And I think Mr. Pedersen is on here for secondary attendance.
Yes, so similar to that, the middle school showed similar participation rates in week 5 as what was reported in week 4. So again, about 3% or 28 students in total were absent or non-participating in all of their classes. Or if we look at this another way, that means 97% of all Timberlane middle school students participated in most of their classes. Similar at the high school, participation rates in week 5 was similar to what was reported in week 4. Through the work of our teachers and counselors, we reported 2.7% or 30 total kids did not participate in any of their classes. I did some more digging into that data. If we look at now, like, kids participating in maybe a couple less of their classes, so 5% or 55 total kids were absent in 4 or more of their classes in week 5. So 95% of our students were participating in the majority of their classes. There was also a question about the CTE programs. Timberline High School sends students to both Salem and Pinkerton. Both of those schools are accounting for those students at their own schools. So they're accounting for their students in participation and attendance through those schools, but they are in contact with our counseling department and our administrators frequently about those students. So, students who are not participating and their non-participation rates, they're telling me, is around 95%. So again, 95% of the students we are sending over there to participate in those CTE programs are participating fully in those CTE programs. But they have counselors that are reaching out to those students directly. They have their teachers reaching out to those students directly, and then they're reporting back to our counseling staff about those students participating or lack thereof. And our counseling staff might be reaching out as well because they might be taking courses at the high school as well, and they're not participating in those courses either. So both academic and participation concerns are being communicated in both our CTE and just all of our students through counselors and admin. These numbers really are no different than our daily attendance rates if you consider like what our normal daily attendance rate is. And I really have to say that's a testament to the amazing work of our teachers to keep these kids engaged in academics during this time period. And then our counselors and administrators who reach out to those families to support the students and make sure that our kids are still having what they need to stay engaged and are making sure that they have, the motivation to stay engaged.
Barbara?
Yeah, I just want to, these are impressive numbers, and I just want to commend you and everybody involved, including the teachers and students, for these impressive results. It shows how much our community values education. Thank you.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you for the support.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Well.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on.
So the last part of our summary just speaks to additional feedback. We wanted to let you know that based on our conversations around feedback and communication with students and families, we have kept the progress report window. Although there won't be a full half trimester or even a full complete half quarter left before the end of year due to the new end date, we are going to still send progress reports the week after April vacation. For elementary, those are typically paper copies that go home in deliveries, so those will be emailed to parents. And the middle and high school will follow their normal procedure of posting in Power School. So again, those will go out the week after vacation. These progress notes will focus on engagement and remote learning and allow for an additional communication with families from the daily, weekly contact by teachers already.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? I'm just scrolling through my screen here. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Farah, that kind of concludes the academic portion of the update this week. I know there were, I think, some other agenda items relative to perhaps special education and other items, but that concludes sort of our portion. So thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not sure who's going next here.
Dr. Farah, at this point, it would be good to have Jeff Dowd talk about the food service update.
Okay, thank you.
Well, good evening. Thank you. You have in your board packets an executive summary on our food service or remote learning food service program. And I'm going to share my screen for the benefit of everyone out there, if you can see that. We have had some increase both in parents and guardians indicating interest for our students. So you can see our trend going up. So last week we had an interest of 358 students. This week we're at 455 as of the 22nd. Program participation itself is going up as well. And you'll note that on the 16th, which was last Thursday, we served 163 students. And on Monday, it was 235 students we served. And you can see what that translates into for breakfasts and lunch: 326 breakfasts and lunch last Thursday, 705 breakfasts and lunch this past Monday. So the program continues to meet the need, I hope, for community, and really the program is doing it well. I'd like to commend John Fratello and his staff really for being able to put together such a robust offering in such a short period of time, and he makes it look easy. It's ironic. I'd also like to remind any of the families out there that if you've called our voicemail hotline at the SAU, which is 382-6119, extension 2255, and left your name or your student's name and the town that you live in, you're on our list. You're part of our account, so feel free to show up at our next program. We are going to be running an April vacation program, so we'll be running what we're running right now straight through April vacation. We have communicated this through our district's main website page and our district food service page. Parents probably were told today when they were picking up that we would continue to run through next week, and we had also included bags and notes in the bags that were delivered today, reminding parents that we will be serving right through April vacation. The board had some questions last week on summer food service programming. This is interesting because we are currently serving our students through what's called a summer serving option. We are able to do that through temporary waivers. We do not normally participate in a summer serving option. There are a number of qualifications that the district typically doesn't qualify for, and it really doesn't typically suit our needs. So I've been in contact with the New Hampshire Department of Ed, and they've requested waivers going into the summer, those same waivers that allow us to continue to serve now under the summer serving option. They've requested those waivers from the USDA, and they have not yet extended those waivers into the summer months to the state. But the current environment is changing quickly, rapidly, and certainly my office and my staff are watching and monitoring what that's going to look like in the future. They've been very, very active in issuing waivers to meet the needs of communities as they've come up, as we've seen. Right now, the program would run through the last day of school. So we're going to keep our eye on it, and I'll hopefully have an update at the next board meeting as to the status of a summer service option. And just as a reminder, our program serves Mondays and Thursdays from 11:15 to noon at designated locations in each town. Those are in Atkinson Academy, in Danville Elementary, in Sandown at the Learning Center at Sandown Central, and at Pollard in Plastow. And of course, the change in designated location for Danville was formerly the community center, is currently the elementary center. That went into effect last Monday. So are there any questions from the board on this that I can help address?
I have a question, Jeff. It's Jen.
Sure.
So on 415, we had 358 students interested, but then on 416, we had 163 students served.
Correct. Yeah,
So
I don't, go ahead.
Does that mean we have that? The difference is how many lunches and how many meals? Is the difference in those numbers, are those leftover bagged meals that people are not picking up?
No, not at all, actually. And that's another area that I'd like to recognize John and his staff. Even though, for example, today we would have had 455 students showing interest, he has a pretty good idea, because of course he does this every day at school. He has a pretty good idea, now that we've had a few days to serve, what the actual numbers are going to look like. And instead of overwhelming every location with as many possible students as may show up, he uses a best guess judgment and has an extra surplus, if you will, in Stowe at the high school, and he's able to respond to any school that has a specific need if they look like they're going to run out or need more bags, he can deploy those relatively quickly. So we're not oversaturating our schools or our locations, but we are able to deploy additional meals out to those locations on an as needed basis.
Jeff, I think the question is if 455 kids ask for them and you only serve 235, is there waste? Is there meals being prepared that are not being sent out? I believe that was the spirit of the question.
Yes, no, not by many. In fact, I think we were very close last Monday, and I think that John actually ended up making a few additional bags toward the end of the serving session. So he really runs a tight program. He knows, he can reasonably estimate what the needs are going to be, and I'm very, very surprised at how close he's able to get that and how he's able to deploy resources when needed, as opposed to making too much and having to bring it all back to the school. So we don't have too much waste.
If people's situation changes and they no longer need, or maybe one particular week for whatever reason may not need, should they call that number and indicate that, or just leave it be?
No, they can just leave it be. We are, John's estimating right now, like, you see on Monday we had 235 students served, and we probably had close to 400 signed up at that time. And we know that not everyone is going to show up at every serving session, every time it's offered, every Monday or Thursday. We know that not everyone's going to show up, so it's factored in.
Okay. I mean, I think everybody's situation is a little bit fluid, and unfortunately, I think as time goes by, more and more people are losing their jobs and situations change. And I'm happy to see if people have a need that those numbers are going up to reflect that. But I just wanted to understand those numbers better. Thank you.
Yeah, and all that said, if a family does have or does not need the program anymore, if they did want to call, they certainly could. That'd be welcome. They could be removed from the counts, which helps us out. But we're always cautious that if a need is not there, might it be there again soon? If it's not there for a couple of weeks, that's fine. But will it might it manifest again? So,
Kim, if I could.
Sheila? Yeah, Dr. Metzler, then Sheila.
Yeah, I think the final piece of this too, I want people to realize, if everybody did show up, and let's just say 455, let's say 500 showed up, we would be able to still feed them. John has access, and he would make sure that they got meals. So I don't want to make anybody nervous that we have far less prepared than we can meet the needs of as many people that show up. They do a great job, right, Jeff?
John is. This is what he does, and he works on an exceptionally large scale. And I don't know how he does it, but he's able to scale our operations as needed and really reduce waste and make sure that we have the availability of meals to be offered. So, absolutely right.
Sheila?
First, I agree with you, Jeff. Mr. Fratello and his staff are fantastic. I'm a little amazed at the students served has literally tripled in 2 weeks.
Yes.
It's tripled, just pretty much tripled, which I think is incredible. So I'm really happy with this. The only other thing I'm begging you to please keep us updated on the summer schedule if you do hear anything from the DOE.
Certainly.
Because I am concerned with people out of work that this is going to be a hardship come the summer.
Kim, if I could.
Yep.
In my conversations with the commissioner, we're cautiously optimistic. We believe that this will be extended, but again, cautiously optimistic until we have the word. But we certainly are prepared to carry this on through the summer, which would be a great service for our families, of course. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Sean?
Yeah, Jeff, I wanted to ask you in regards to this program is outlined as a 5-day program. What do we do on the weekends? Because definitely the need does not change when you get to the weekend.
Oh, absolutely. We are able to offer through the 5 school serving days. Weekend serving options are a little bit outside the program that we currently offer. So if that's something that were of interest, I don't know that we'd be able to necessarily do a weekend offering. It might be more, when I say a weekend offering, meaning a weekend serving time. It might, if that were something that we were to do, we would probably move to like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday with 2 bags on Monday, 2 bags on Wednesday, and then 3 on Friday, or 2 bags, 2 meals, like those days. But right now this program doesn't extend to the weekend. So is that something that's of interest to the board that I can look into, or are we just trying to see if there are other resources available?
At least from my viewpoint, I'd like to find out the interest in this. As Sheila had pointed out, this thing, increased dramatically in just a couple of weeks. There might be a need that we don't even know that there's a need for that.
True, but I think, Sean, that what we're doing right now, and Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, this is being offset by revenue, is it not?
Correct.
Yes.
If we extend it to the weekend, that the district, I would think, would have to absorb that cost.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd have to, I'd have to look in and see if there were any other waivers available for us, and that wouldn't be a certainty, so.
Well, if you could check into that, that would be good.
Certainly.
What typically happens, Kim, is that the schools with their Lions clubs put together what they call power packs.
Oh, okay.
And they send them with the kids on Friday. Basically, their backpacks, knapsacks. They send them home with a breakfast and a lunch, a breakfast and a lunch. And they sent the Lions with the schools, get all this together and send them with the kids on the weekends. The kids that they know in the schools need help. So, typically it's done in Plastow, I believe, and it's done in Danville. I don't believe it's done in Sandown, and I don't believe it's done in Atkinson. But it's outside of the school realm, other than they go home via the school.
Right. Okay.
And just a reminder to all the folks who are listening that this program remains open. So please feel free to reach out and sign up at any time. Let us know at any time. We can include you in our accounts.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. Well, that's something that we should probably think about doing, or trying to get the Lions clubs, maybe reaching out to the Lions clubs in the various towns to let them know what's going on in case they do want to contribute. I can reach out to Danville.
Well, it's actually the other way around. They're looking for food to send home with these kids on the weekends.
Who's looking for food?
The Lions clubs that are still collecting food for the food pantries and these kids. They're still doing these power packs right now, Kim.
In Danville?
And I know they are in Plastow. I believe they're doing it in Danville still.
I don't know. Okay, so they are getting meals on the weekend. Is that what you're telling me?
They are when they get their necessities.
Okay.
When they get the food in from people who contribute, they are getting the weekend food in those two communities.
In those two communities.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think maybe, I think it's outside of our purview, but maybe just Dr. Metzler even putting something out to maybe the select boards to let them know what's going on, so that the other two towns, or somehow communicating to the other towns that if they have a Lions Club or something like that, that might be able to help out or do these power packs, can confer with the other towns.
You have one of the top Lions right above you in this Hollywood Square box here, and Mr. Boyle. I don't know if he.
Oh boy.
Yes, there he is. There he is, right at the top.
This.
We're going to put Brian in charge of this.
I wouldn't call me a top lion, but at any rate, thanks for the compliment. I'll look into it.
Go ahead and tell him why you're not a top Lion anymore, Brian.
Because I spent all my Thursday nights with this great group.
Got it.
Oh,
Thank you, Brian.
There you go.
All right. I think, any other questions on the food service update? No? Okay. I think we still have special ed here.
If we could, Kim, first,
Yes.
Susan's on the line, and she certainly can give us a quick update. But I just wanted to say, our special ed staff is doing a great job. You know, there are so many different services that need to be provided. And you know, a lot of these cases will come across our desks, but not really desks now. It's emails and different things. And you know, we're trying to get all the services to the people that have the services in their IEPs, and then there are people asking for additional services. And so you know, quite a challenge for Susan and her team. But they've done a nice job, and I think Susan, you ready to give a quick update?
I am, Dr. Metzler. Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so in your executive summary tonight, we're really focused on occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech and language services. What I have prepared for you is just an overview of weeks 4 and 5. The learning curve continues for our related service providers, and they are doing an amazing job providing services for our students. Since the last update, there have been conversations with families. I know I had indicated about outreach to families, saying 3 things that are really going well and a wish for next week. That seems to be helping us significantly with a great number of our population. And so we'll continue that. This team also is still maintaining our compliance factors too, in terms of all of the educational IEP team meetings that continue in addition to our planning for activities for students. In your packet as well, for those that are listening in, is also a week 5 activity overview sheet, and that's included from the Learning Center for our youngest students, because we also want to be aware of the fact that a lot of screen time and only screen time is certainly not good for our students at this time. Especially in the area of the little owls. So that sheet that is with you in that packet is really focused on 4 primary areas of focus for all of our students at that level. It's self-regulation, fine motor, gross motor, and communication, and it gives you a sense of the activities that they're doing. Feedback that they're receiving is that initially it was very hard to come on board, because especially with families having older students as well, we tried to get the older students set and ready and then work a little bit more with the younger children. And so we are moving in that direction. Final piece for me is that we have decided on remote ESY, and we continue to look at the services that we'll provide. And as the governor lifts the bans that are in place, we are ready to look at other opportunities and different methods of providing the needs for our students in special education. I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
I do have a question.
Sure.
So right now, in that executive summary, it says that use of video conference is happening and increasing.
It is for students. Some of our families are not on board in terms of attention span for some of our students. So they are bringing that piece on board as it's suitable for families and in their home environment.
Okay, so I'm asking, Susan, because I have some families who are telling me that they actually would appreciate some video conferencing and that they are not getting it right now. So is there somebody they should contact if that's something they feel would be helpful for their students?
They could certainly go to their team. I think just to expand on that question, Jen, there are educational plans that were written prior to the March 13 time. And so they were really fully written for, if you will, prior to remote learning. And I actually have spoken to some of the Atkinson families regarding this, that they really should reconvene the teams and meet to talk about the best way to include some of the services. But I want to be transparent in saying that not all of the services can we provide. Some of them will need to be compensated when we come out of this, when the governor lifts the quarantine piece as well. But I really, as a general rule, I would recommend that they either contact the case manager that was on the team that wrote the plan, or reach out to me. I field a lot of questions over the week and actually have been in on some team meetings to guide different types of alternatives for service delivery, especially in the areas of special education.
Okay, so I know they've gone that route. I will redirect them back to you a second time then.
Some of them that we have already resolved happened as late as 5 o'clock this evening, and it was from Atkinson constituents. So yeah, please reach out, and if they're still having an issue, we can go back at it and revisit it.
So with the state of New Hampshire and the licenses for, say, speech, PT, OT, are those professionals able to provide teletherapy through the school districts?
Right now, we're doing video presentation. Teletherapy is a medical piece, and we're at this time not having that two-way piece. We do have some buildings are now ready for what we call co-treats, and that's with our speech and language pathologist and then our occupational therapist or physical therapist in some cases. But that two-way is not two-way in terms of being in the homes is still not up and running at this time. And I know you know this, but we don't have any physical contact going into homes or any of that piece.
Right, right. So I just didn't know if I know with I didn't know if schools were different than regular like medical communities in their ability to provide those therapies like through telehealth.
We do have vendors that are up and running, but again, we're staying pretty close to what we have in terms of video presentation. Some of the conversations I've had with families is that they would like it, but the attention span of their child is such that they don't know if it would be the best way to service it. So they really are working in related services to see what's the best way to move gradually towards what we're doing. And if you recall in the first presentation that I made, a lot of families weren't even really focused in on related services because they were trying to fit everything in reasonably so and work towards it. And now I'm getting feedback in week 4 and 5 that related services are getting more attention, and there still are things to work out. I would not say it's a perfect system, nor would any of your related service providers. But I think we are moving in a direction that will serve us well. And hopefully as the governor lifts quarantine, we'll be able to provide some of these services. In fairness to, generally speaking, within special education, some of the services we just simply couldn't do, especially if they're a positioning of a foot to, support a muscle, or in speech to be able to help a child with some of the articulation components. Those are things we are going to need to spend some time on. And our focus is really targeted on some of our students are regressing as a result of this, and we're putting them as a priority to go in and look at some of those pieces. But even teletherapy, to be fair, once that comes on, there still are some families that we're going to need to work with to get them up and running so that students are getting the skill set practice that they need.
Sheila?
Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
Mrs. Rassico, first of all, are you exhausted?
I'm still here, Sheila.
I know, but you've got to be exhausted. You have to be. I need you to help me out just with a couple of things.
Sure.
Are we or are we not Zooming with families with PT, OT, and speech?
In terms of the video presentation that we've been speaking to, we have to have families sign on and want to participate.
And if we had a family sign on, are we doing this? That's my question.
Okay, so we are doing it. The piece that gets in our way, Sheila, and the frequency and the duration is off, and I'll be honest with you on that.
It's like every other week?
Yes, it is, and they're really prioritizing, because keep in mind, in order to do our video presentation as it is, it takes 2 staff members to be in on it.
Correct.
And so now, as they're working, our professionals are finding new ways to bring in another professional that is reasonable, but also is effective. So we
Right.
are seeing speech pathologists working in the classroom with the teacher and
Okay.
providing a level of support that way. And then
Okay.
for students who are actually requiring, let's say they have in their service delivery speech and language and an OT, they're trying to find times where they can combine. There are two natural barriers: the caseload size and the number of
Right.
staff, but
Right.
there's also the piece of keeping in compliance with the teams that they're on for education. Because keep in mind,
Right.
the state has never lifted the evaluation component in terms of we have to stick to those timelines.
Okay.
So they're
So
in.
I'm just thinking out of the box here. And just tell me if I'm totally off base here. But if we can't line up 2 professionals to do this with a child, say speech and OT, okay? Could we use another employee to sit on with that speech person or sit on with that OT person that, you know, isn't there for any other reason just to be the 2 or the 2-on-1 or the 2-on-2? That's what I'm saying?
I do, and I can tell you 2 things that we're working on. So with our remote learning for ESY, we are looking at vendors and looking towards the CARES Act to actually fund that component as well. One of the things we've tried really hard is to stay consistent with service providers because our children are going to relate best to them. That's where the rapport is.
Correct.
But we are looking at, as we're growing and moving towards this direction, looking at our outside vendors, looking at the CARES Act. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, we'll be looking at our grants and ironing out just exactly what we can do. But I think, you know, there's certainly frustration. It's not the same. We definitely changed in the flip of a switch. And I know you understand all of that. But I really want to make sure that we're being cost effective and reasonable for our families. And so initially in week 1, families that we were speaking with that were not satisfied, they're coming on board and realizing, okay, so this goal we may not be able to work on for a bit. I think what's most compelling throughout all the conversations I've had are that families really love their teams, that are their special ed teams, and they want to work with them. And I think that's a true tribute to all of the teams that are working there. So
I wholeheartedly agree with you. And especially the children, you know, they're used to their team people. They're used to those faces. They're used to those people that they had during the year.
Yes, and the nice thing is that the vendors that we had in related service world, because I know that's what we're talking about tonight, those vendors that support us in the summer have all wholeheartedly signed on and are willing to do that. So looking ahead, even though it's not part of it, but it is in your summary, the ESY that we're looking to provide would hopefully have those vendors in place, another component to work on.
Okay. And the only other thing I wanted to ask is our private tuition resident kids, are they still getting their services from our tuitioned vendors? How do I say that?
You said it just perfectly. I think
Thank
I
you.
really understand what you're trying to say. I'm on weekly conferences along with our out-of-district coordinator, working with all of our students. They have extensive, just to back it up a little bit, the federal government and state requires that we have service plans that are individualized.
Correct.
We get weekly reports. For one student, it might be as much as 7 pages long with all of the pieces that are in there. I think I did provide a template. In order for us to maintain our grant funding for these activities, we've been asked to maintain those documents. We're doing them electronically. We
But
have
they,
had,
but they still have their kids, because I know some of these are in different states. That's why I'm asking, Susan. I mean, I
okay.
know some of these students, you know, are involved in, you know, different state schools. So, you know, where we may be crossing a state border is where I'm concerned that they, you know, that these private tuition children are still getting their services, whether it's through virtual or whatever we're doing. We're obviously not sending these children out.
No, we're not. They are in their placements that they were in that we were paying for.
Right.
And they all have their plans and they're all working with our students.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
That's what I was concerned with, because I know, like I said, we have some that are out of state.
Yeah.
And that's concerning to me.
Yes, they are. I mean, we did have some issues initially because, as you know, the state of Massachusetts, where we do have students,
Right.
very much had decided to just do enrichment activities. But I will say, and I give credit to the state director of special ed, the both Massachusetts and New Hampshire worked together so that we could come on board. So they were probably on board the last week of March, not effective the 23rd. But we're now looking to how they're going to provide the summer services.
Right.
There are 2 schools that never actually provided summer services. So we have our usual search for vendors that will take them for that summer piece. But
Perfect.
they are up and running, Sheila.
All right. No, those are, you know, these are the kids that, you know, sit in the back of my mind and just, they're there.
Yeah.
So I thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Are we utilizing any of our paras for any of these video conferencing offerings that we might be able to provide?
At this time, we are not.
Is there any plan to, or is there a reason, or how could we, is there a way we could utilize them to maybe get these services out to families?
We're always looking at new ways, but in all honesty, Jen, we're trying to keep consistency with the knowledge base in terms of those services. Our paras provide a great service to us when we're in-house, but at this point, we're working on a lot of professional development opportunities should we have remote learning go for an even longer period of time. So mostly we're getting our staff on board and trained, and as we move forward, I could foresee changes in the way we're doing things a number of times as we expand.
Thank you. Go ahead, Barbara.
So I heard you say that you have at least 2 impediments. One is getting the 2 people on the call so you can have the call at the frequency you want, and that you're working on that. The second one was you said there was some regulation or something that hadn't been lifted.
Basically, the piece, Barbara, that I was speaking to is the governor still has us in quarantine status. So there are certain things that services, so to speak, that would be most effective in person to person. We just can't do that. But we have those plans in place when we're able to do that portion of a child's.
Okay, and I thought I heard.
Be.
I thought I heard you say there was some regulation or something that you had to meet that hadn't been amended or something, but I could be wrong.
In terms of the grants for the federal upkeeping, I think that was when I was speaking to Sheila's question about the individual student service plans. So when we went into remote learning, our activities are in the grant. We need to make sure that we're aligning our activities and they're suitable for what we had in there prior to remote learning. So we need to justify the ways in which we are meeting the service needs that are in the educational plan. And those are the service plans provided both in out of district and also what our in-house teams are providing.
Okay, and so can we go back to the originator of the grant and say, has anything changed because like the whole world's turned upside down?
That's another aspect of the job I do. We do Lucy Williams and I review our grants on a weekly basis, and we actually do go in and update the activities to accurately reflect what we are doing. And one of those pieces, Barbara, is the work that the teams are doing to create those service plans so that the grants continue. At this time, all of our federal funding continues because we're following what the state and federal guidelines have asked us to do.
Okay, I'm just wondering if you could push back at all to try and amend things to reflect that things have changed.
I guess I need clarification on your question. I'm not sure what you mean by pushback.
Well,
I mean, I think.
Well, so if they've got this set of rules that was back when everything was normal, and you're struggling to meet those rules because things have changed and you can't do things in person, they're not making any allowances?
Actually, that's a great question. They are, and we need to use those service plans and update them in the activities that we have in the grant, and they'll continue to pay for them. So the barriers, I think there's two things. The barrier for the video presentation using 2 staff members at a time has impacted our frequency. That's one piece. The other piece is that in our grants, we need to make sure consistently, and we're doing it on a weekly basis as opposed to a monthly basis now, where we're making sure that everything aligns in the activity portion of the grant. None of our grants, we're still getting our money on time, and we will continue to do so as long as we have the record keeping to have on hand should there be an audit.
Okay, I appreciate all the work you're doing, and I hope you're reaching out when you need resources. Thanks.
Absolutely, thanks.
I've got to go back. So, Susan, a barrier is using 2 staff members to impact the frequency. That is a barrier to using video conferencing, correct?
It is, but the other part of that, Jen, is that we're working with families because they're trying to find times that they can actually include that component in there, which is why in your packet I provided the written assignments that go along with the services that we're providing. So, for example, if you have a student that has 4 times 20 to work on the skill sets that's in the service packet, that's done as parents are working on those pieces. And then your video presentations is another component. So as time goes on, we're actually including a number of activities as we move forward that will include a variety of ways to focus on specific skill sets outside of what we did prior to remote learning, which was face-to-face.
But with regards to the video conferencing piece, how are we utilizing our paras? If we're saying that one of the barriers is having 2 staff members, this district employs a lot of paraprofessionals, and can they be used in that way? What are they doing right now?
They're working on professional development in a number of ways, and they are self-selecting what they would like to work on. And they are updating and keeping that information. It's collected on a weekly basis.
So are they supporting the teachers and students at this time?
They are doing activities for the teachers, and that's in their Google Classrooms as well.
But can they be used to support the special ed component and overcome this barrier?
They would have, in our typical time, they wouldn't have the licenses to do a lot of the work that is expected to do. We need to follow the paraeducator's job description. So right now, I believe that we are really doing the very best that we can. When we look at the CARES Act and adding the additional component to the outside vendors and their opportunity, the certified occupational therapy assistants have a higher knowledge base and license base to cover many of the therapy needs of our students. And there's also speech and language assistants that provide supports in that area.
But I'm not sure if you're understanding what I'm asking, and so I'll just try and rephrase it a different way. A barrier is having 2 staff members, and if we have a licensed speech and language person or a licensed occupational therapist, are you saying the other person on the call has to be a licensed assistant person?
What I'm saying to you is that we want to focus on the skill set development and use the expertise that we have at hand to help that grow. And so in looking to those pieces in the job description of a paraeducator, that isn't necessarily the way in which we would use them. So in remote learning, we're using them to do some of the activities that need to be done and in Google Classroom, along with continuing with their professional development. But at this time, when you're looking at related services, you really need to stay within the confines of the necessary licensure. And it really goes back to also the question that Barbara raised in terms of the pushback. If we're looking at our federal grants and we want to continue to be reimbursed for these services, we need to have the licenses in place to make sure that they're reimbursable services. So it's
and I'm not suggesting not having a licensed person. I'm suggesting if you have a licensed person who can do this work through a video conference, and the only barrier is that you need 2 staff members present in order for that licensed person to be able to carry out the therapies which will be reimbursed, why can't we be using our paraprofessionals as that other person?
Jen?
Yeah.
I think that's a discussion that we should have at a later time, because it does involve the fact that you've got unions involved here.
Oh, okay, so it's not just okay, so it's not just a matter of 2 people. Sorry. All right.
Kim, if I could, there's just another piece to it as well.
Yes.
The piece that I spoke about in terms of co-treat, we are hearing from families that have very significantly needy students when it comes to services, and they're appreciative of the fact that we're trying to move towards a co-treat piece where an occupational therapist and speech and language pathologist would be able to work together in a time frame that meets the family schedule. Because keep in mind, we still have a lot of families who are working from home, and they're trying to divide their time up. But I certainly welcome the opportunity at a later date to discuss, but I wanted to make that piece clear as well, that there are many pieces we're looking at to make sure that we're meeting the family needs as well as what we need to do for grants. It's a universal piece that we have to hit on all areas, unfortunately, on many of these pieces.
No, I understand. It just sounds like there's some barriers, and how do we look to creatively remove the barriers when, you know, things, I know we're not doing things as we typically would, but nobody really is. So just trying to think outside the box on how to get these services to these students.
Yeah, and I think, you know, all of us working together, we'll make more changes that are more beneficial as we go through this. I think one of the things within our related service providers, certainly they're changing things every week. And I think really the feedback they're getting and working with families, that's why our families are so appreciative of the teams that they have in place.
Okay, thank you. Just one other question that I have has to do with, you mentioned compensatory services. In my understanding right now is there are 3 tiers, is that correct? That the state talks about? There's an online, there's continuing with in-person with limited cohorts, and then there's having to offer compensatory services?
Yes, and I talked about that in the first presentation that I did, but
Right.
I welcome the opportunity to go back to that.
No, we don't need to go back to it. I'm
Okay.
just wondering, I'm looking at it from a budgetary point of view. If there are hours that are delivered right now, could it potentially impact the budget, or we're gonna have to encumber? Is this gonna be a budget overage because we now have to go back even though we're paying, you know, we're employing certain people? I think we need to come to some idea of what we're looking at from a budgetary point of view on this.
And I can go through and take a look at that in looking at the plans. we're trying to minimize that, and that's why we're constantly looking at our grants and the remote learning piece through the CARES Act. We are also working with teams now to consider what could be offered as we move forward in the ESY options that we have.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think that was the end of our updates. Hang on. Yep, I think we're through them. All right. So the next item on the agenda is the withdrawal update. I have heard from council that Hampstead is willing to enter into negotiations with Timberlane. If you didn't watch the SAU meeting, there was some discussion. Hampstead and Timberlane are attempting to start negotiations for the withdrawal, and we will look to employ a mediator at a cost that will be split between the two districts. So that's really all I have. I know that all the paperwork was sent up to the state by our legal counsel. There will be a state Board of Education meeting. This should be put on the consent agenda. It just is basically that the DOE is aware that that withdrawal has passed and that it is moving forward. And then at some point, there'll be a new SAU number assigned to us. So that's where we stand on the withdrawal. Barbara, question?
Yeah, I was just wanting to make clear that the paper, the work that you sent up there is to establish the new SAU or to establish that we're withdrawing. Is that correct?
Well, there's a statutory requirement that the Department of Ed is notified once the election has been completed and the warrant has been signed and approved by the district clerk. So the district clerk was involved, and also council, because there was paperwork that had to be sent up, just so they're aware that it legally passed through the voters. Any other questions on withdrawal? I'm sure there'll be more updates. The board is planning, I am planning to have a non-meeting with council next Thursday at 7. There will probably be some updates or discussion about withdrawal with the board at that point with council. The next item on the agenda is school board goals for 2020-21. I will make this quick also. I did get at least one board member gave me input. That would be one out of the other 8 people. So looking for more input, Brian Boyle. No, I saw you laughing. Looking for more input on school board goals, because after we do a non-meeting with council next Thursday, we will get the school board goals done. So the more we do in advance, the better. So we'll probably do conference call with non-meeting with council, and then we'll move into a Zoom for a work session with the school board. So that's all I have on the school board goals. In your packets or posted is the strategic plan. So we'll be using that in conjunction with our goals from last year and what we want to develop for this coming year. Obviously, there are a couple that jump out at me. One is to work through the withdrawal transition year. That's going to be a huge thing. And also to support the district in remote learning as we move forward. So those, and then number 3 in my mind is still continue to have a 5-year facilities plan developed and a better handle on what our facilities look like now and what they need to look like in the future. So those are kind of the big overreaching ideas. Mr. Duffy, you're certainly welcome to shoot me any ideas that you might have for school board goals, since you've been sitting on here for almost a year.
I will think of some things and let you know if anything comes up.
Okay, great. All right. Moving on to the administrator's report. You see, I'm trying to catch back up on my time, guys. Just joking. Dr. Messler. Uh-oh, he left. Oh, see, he thought I was going to be on for a long while. Dr. Messler. Anybody have a good joke?
Well, he's there. He's just not on.
Any committee reports?
I was just going to ask.
Kim, could you hear me? I'm sorry, I was trying to.
Oh, there he is.
No, we couldn't hear you. You muted yourself again. Oh, there you are.
No, I'm good. No, I'm good. Okay, I just had a few things. If I could. First, We had a, I'm assuming you have this in your packets, maybe you don't. We got a form from the DOE. It's a SPED non-compliance form. It gives you a percentage based on the number of evaluations and certifications. And I believe we're in the high 90s there, 97 point something percent. And there was one with some extenuating circumstances. So that was excellent job by Susan Rasco and all the special needs staff. Secondly, Kim, you have in your packet, I think maybe all the board members, the general assurances. So I didn't know if that was something you were going to discuss with the other board members or have the other board members get back to you, because that's something will require your signature and then my signature, and we need to get that into the Department of Education.
Right. This is an annual form that needs to be signed. So the board chair typically signs this on behalf of the board. It is in the, it's not in the agenda packet. It's in the main agenda packet. It is in the, in those files though. So federally funded programs which flow money through the DOE require each applicant to file certain assurances. And so these are, some of these assurances apply to all programs and are therefore considered general assurances. So these are just required as part of federal regulations. And so the DOE has put all these into one document, and I'm looking for a motion from the board to sign on behalf of the board the certifications that are enclosed in the general assurances sent out by DOE for FY 2021.
So moved.
Sean makes the motion, Sheila seconds.
Yes.
Okay. Kat, could you take a roll call vote on that, please?
Mr. Boyle,
Yes.
Mr. Doobie,
Yes.
Dr. Farah,
Yes.
Mrs. Kishka,
Yes.
Ms. Lowe's,
Yes.
Mr. O'Neill,
Yes.
Mrs. Savage,
Yes, sorry about that. Yes.
Mrs. Silva,
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I always forget. Okay, so that's approved. Dr. Messler, anything else?
Excellent. Yes. The board asked us to take a look at some of our contracts with our vendors to see kind of what kind of work could be done with them, especially where we may not be fully using or their services in the months of, partially in March and certainly not April, May, and June. So we've been in contact with council regarding the reduction of payments under our existing contracts and the implications with the Federal CARES Act. So we're finalizing some tentative agreements with our major vendors. We'll be able to report out on the May 7th deadline. Continue to work in the spirit of the board's direction on these contracts, which means, basically we're looking for some savings and we're starting to try to preserve jobs in the process. So that is underway, and I believe, like I said, we should have some solid information to share with you on May 7th.
Okay, thank you.
And
Anything
finally,
else?
sure, we have obviously and Ken Henderson started talking a little bit about this earlier. It's about the returning of equipment and picking up of equipment. We also have the unenviable task of figuring out a way to get people in and out of our buildings to clean out their lockers, get their personal items, those sorts of things. So the middle school, the high school, all elementary schools are working directly with Gary Paradise and our facilities director, and certainly Ken in terms of communication to come up with what we think is the safest way over a period of time to be able to get people in to get their materials. So there is an executive summary in your packet or several, and we'll get that done. We do, one thing we do have is time. So I asked them to spread that out and try to do it in as safe a way as possible. So that is being done.
Okay, thank you. Anything else before the board?
Sure.
Yes.
The last thing is the personnel report. I don't have a personnel report this evening. We've had several retirements or resignations come in over the last couple of weeks. So I will have those for you on the 7th of May. They just were not prepared for this evening.
Okay, thank you. There are no reports of the school board. There was a question about committees. There's no pressing committee work right now, and because we are looking to wait to hear what the governor says before we move forward, because we feel like we can just hold off till May 4th if we're in this state moving in this condition where we can't meet real time after the 4th, we will start to have to make some plans to set those committees up and get them moving virtually and post them the same way. So that is the plan moving forward if we need to stay remote. But our plan right now is to just wait and hear what's going to be going on. I know it might have been an SAU payroll register, but you should be getting electronic documents for signing payrolls and things like that. And any other questions from board members?
Mr.
Anything
Duffy
else?
has one.
Mr. Duffy?
Yeah, this is just a brief question for Ms. Blair. I'm wondering, since the administration team is going to be coming in on May 7th, will we know the status of where finals are at, or what our plan will be by the time of that meeting? Or at that meeting, for that matter?
So,
I'm sorry, Kyle, you broke up a little bit in the beginning there. If you wouldn't mind repeating that.
What did we lose me on? So just a question for Ms. Allaire. On May 7th, when the admin team comes in to the school board meeting, at that meeting, will we know the status of what we're going to do with finals, or what our plan is there?
Sandy, or do you want me to answer? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Mark is still on there, but Kyle, when you say come in, I think, so you're saying when they're presenting at the school board meeting, is that your question? If the senior activities will include comments on finals?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think communication should be going out very shortly. I thought it might have gone out today actually to seniors or to students and families, but the plan for finals will be the last 4 days of school. I want Mr. Pedersen to jump on too, but in a nutshell, yeah, finals will happen. There'll be kind of a slightly modified version of finals, but they will be communicated to students. There will be 4 days, I believe. Mr. Pedersen, is that correct? That they will have to complete all of them that final week?
Correct. So there
Okay.
was both the Owls news that went out from the administrative team this morning to all students, had the finals sort of information in it, and then a separate letter went out to families, parents, and students around 1 o'clock today. That again talked about the finals information. So you know, students we are having finals. They will still count as 10% of quarter 4. They're going to be communicated to students on Tuesday, May 26th by 9 a.m. And they're going to be due back to teachers on Friday, May 29th at 2:30 p.m. So they are take home. They are, you know, open note, open book, but we are going to assess learning by, you know, maybe a reflection, essay, project, portfolio, presentation. You know, it's not going to be your traditional final that you might have taken when you were in brick and mortar school, but it is definitely going to be a final assessment of your learning. So all of that communication went home today. Like I said, this first thing this morning, from Mr. Woodworth got sent out to all the students, and then again, a letter went home to parents and students about midday.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Sheila, then Jen.
Kyle, did you get this letter?
I have not seen.
You're breaking up something fierce, son.
Kyle, try turning off your video and then speaking.
No, I think it's his connection.
No.
Not, unfortunately, no.
Kyle's in a bad area of Atkinson.
Well, Kyle, there's a letter that went out, so you should probably try to track it down. Hopefully somebody will give it to you.
Could I ask a question about the letter that went out today?
Yep.
And some of the dates in that. Is there a reason that and I know this is all very fluid based on whatever's going on, but is there a reason that we would look to do the prom after graduation?
So the prom, the date there, was selected because of that was the availability of Atkinson Country Club. I know that Heather Cronin, assistant principal at the high school, was reaching out to Atkinson Country Club to try to find you know, a time that could work that we could potentially still do a live in-person event, and working with them to solidify some dates. So, you know, obviously in the summer season with weddings and things like that, you know, Atkinson Country Club has very limited dates. So that was the date that Heather was able to secure for the prom. But, you know, as you pointed out, everything is such in flux that we don't know what's going to happen, you know, come the end of the school year, come the summer, what we are going to be allowed to do per state and CDC guidelines.
Yeah, I just didn't know how much, oh gosh, I don't know that control is the right word, but you know, this is, if the prom is a school sponsored event and these students have already graduated, I mean, technically they're not our students anymore. And are there any responsibilities, liabilities? I mean, what does that look like for us as the district?
Yeah, I mean, I know that had gotten discussed. We talked about, you know, what we have to do, you know, that we can't sort of hold graduation over their head, if you will, because they've already graduated. You know, we've talked about it as far as liability and things like that. I can't really address the exact liability aspect of things. I don't know if somebody else might know those exact answers, but again, we are going with what was available at Atkinson Country Club.
Okay.
Okay, Sheila?
Two things. Can the school board get a copy of this letter that went out so that if we have constituents calling us, we have an idea what they're talking about? That's first.
I forwarded that to the chair
Thank you.
late this afternoon. After I, it was almost simultaneous. I think Jen had forwarded to Kim, and I had sent one around the same time because I had just gotten it myself.
Yeah, well, like, you know, we have people calling us or messaging us or emailing us, and it'd just be nice to have it written down somewhere. The second thing is, Kim, do you think maybe we should be talking to somebody in regards to the liability, if there is one?
That's not my bailiwick. That's the superintendent's bailiwick there.
Well, what I'm asking is what the board thinks about having the superintendent talk to legal or whoever to find out if we do have a liability after graduation. I mean, it is something to think about where we're lying here.
It's also in a different fiscal year.
Yeah, thoughts about that, Dr. Metzler?
Yeah, there certainly are some challenges. You know, as far as liability goes, you know, I'm sure there would be a waiver or something along those lines that we could sign. I mean, we really want to do, and I know you do too, with anything and everything we can for the class of 2020. So,
Absolutely.
you know, our graduation, you know, not the funny thing, I mean, if we can have a prom, we can have a graduation later too. So they won't technically have graduated either. So I think if we're having a live prom in July, we're probably having a live graduation, and maybe we coordinate the two events so that the prom takes place before the graduation, and then it's a moot point. But yeah, I can certainly look into it, but I'm not that concerned. It's great kids, and we want to do everything we can for them, and I'm sure they'd be great. We have very, very, very few problems at all at any of our dances and that sort of things. I mean, kids are kids, and we manage, you know, what we manage, and their parents are great. So yeah, I'm sure they can be worked out, but those are just some of the details, and I think we'll flush out the details and try to do the best we can for the class of 2020.
Let me just be clear. I would love to have them have all their events. They deserve it. But I just want to make sure that all bases are covered, everybody's safe, and we're doing our best. That's all. Thank you.
That's crystal clear, and we certainly, you know, if it's at the Atkinson Country Club, which is where we hope, it will be adequately staffed one way or another. You know, both by the local police departments and certainly, obviously, staff and volunteers. So we should be good. But let's make sure, and if we need to have waivers, we'll have waivers. But I think it really is conditional upon when the graduation is as well. So we got to coordinate those events.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I know it's all fluid, and I just didn't, and that's fine. I mean, the date's the date. If there's no other dates, there's no other dates. I was just asking if there was what the thought was behind having the prom after the graduation, and if there was a way to reverse that. If there's not a way to reverse that, there's not. I mean, we're dealing with what we're dealing with, and I think the goal is to try and get it all in for these kids if we can before they go off to college, because once you're gone, you know, I don't know how many seniors are going to want to come back for a high school event when they're already midway through their first semester of college. So if we can squeeze it in, that would be great.
And I think the one thing I want to try to avoid is, like, for instance, a Friday night prom and a Saturday morning graduation kind of thing. You know, that's just, that may impact attendance.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. So if there's nothing else, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:06. Thank you, everybody, for coming, and those who are online.
Kim, you're literally 1 minute apart in all three meetings now. 9:06, 9:08, 9:07. It's pretty amazing.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Talented.
Hopefully they'll all be
That's
so
our next
short.
one.
All right.
Have a good night.
So
Good night.
plan on next Thursday, board members. I'll send you info. Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.